Well, then I noticed that it was being used as a pretext for something called the Great Reset.
And again, I mean, to bring back the World Economic Forum, this is a page on the WEF website. It's the great reset of the global economies and the global political order.
Right. But they're very open about it, okay? And there have been, white papers written in the past about using just this methodology to get everybody behind the globalist agenda, right? Operation, Warp Speed was part of that, And
so then does Trump bear some responsibility for giving Fauci the
definitely
microphone?
bears responsibility. My question is, does he really know what's going on, or has he surrounded himself with people that are misleading him about what's going on? I would like to believe that Donald Trump has been misled.
So what's the end game here? I mean, if America...
The end game is world domination. They're going global. That's what it's all about.
Now, there's nothing new to the idea that Satan or Lucifer, or let's call him just the old devil himself, is the prince of this world, and that the rich and the powerful they do his bidding, and they're bad people, and they follow their lowest appetites and their pleasures, and they can be sadistic. And so that's been going on for a long time. Is there something particular about the moment we're living in that says it's actually gotten much worse?
Yes, that is, we've had so many technological advancements that now the technology of surveillance and coercion are such, and these people are so rich, they're like black holes gravitating all the money to themselves, that they're unstoppable, okay? And because they're unstoppable, because they actually run everything, okay, we are endangered by them now.
It sounds to me like you're saying we don't live in Schoolhouse Rock, I'm a bill up on Capitol Hill. We're not living in the republic that a lot of us say that we're living in.
That's correct. We're ruled, basically, the world is globalistic now. It's run by globalists. That's their goal. I mean, that's what global means. We're going global.
It's oligarchic.
Huh?
And it would therefore be oligarchic. What you're describing.
That's absolutely correct. Oligarchic, because very few of them actually exist.
And this is beyond, a U.S. senator. This is beyond the structures.
Those are puppets.
For decades, he has worked on a theory, but if you see what he writes, how much of his cognitive theoretic model of the universe would you understand?
My theory is a mapping or correspondence between the language of thought and the real world.
Act 2, The Smart Guy.
In 1999, ABC aired a story on Chris. They sent him to a neuropsychologist.
Hello, Chris.
For a standard IQ test, 2 hours of problem solving. His score reported as too high to measure.
The highest individual that I have ever measured in 25 years of doing this.
Experts tell us most people have IQs around 100. College grads average 120. Above 130 qualifies for membership in Mensa. Chris's estimated IQ has been reported at 195. According to statistics, only 1 in 100 million people have a score at that level.
I like to maintain a little bit of modesty because it's healthy to do that. It's not healthy to get a big head.
But from the time he was a little kid, Chris says he knew.
They skipped me a few grades early. So I started suspecting that I was different then.
Despite smiles and photos, Chris explains growing up smart and poor got him beat up in school and at home.
In my family, it was not politically correct to be a genius. My stepfather didn't like, they used to tell me all the time, nobody likes a smart ass.
So he got into bodybuilding to fight back. His name and his work appear in books. He has lots of books and one purpose, which brings us back to Chris's theory.
I can remember asking my grandfather, is there a God?
Now in his 50s, that's what he's been working to prove all along.
And so if you have a theory that you say implies the existence of God, for example, well, you're falling afoul of the scientific method. How can we test for the existence of God?
And it's especially interesting when it comes to you, because you're a guy at the very highest end of the intelligence spectrum, and you've lived the life of a blue-collar guy.
That's right. I wanted meaning in my life. It's like I say, I wanted meaning above all things. You got to make sure, that you decide up front when you're a young man, if you want to accomplish anything, who do you serve? truth or mammon. Okay, you don't have a choice. You do have a choice, but you can't do both at once. Okay, it's either going to be truth, which is the same as God. I mean, truth and God are to some extent synonymous.
Yeah.
Or
Good,
it's going
good, the
to
true,
be-
and beautiful.
Or it's going to be money. And if you choose money, if you choose mammon, then you're going to be serving mammon, who happens to be the globalists at this point, because they control all the wealth and power.
God is outside of time and space.
Well,
But
distributes over time and space, and there's some left over. Time and space is static. It's a display.
Yeah.
Imagine that you're a little homunculus inside a computer display, like the Matrix, for example, okay? God not only distributes over that, but there's a whole other domain where God exists. And that's the processing domain. That's the non-terminal domain in the CTMU. We're in the terminal domain, right? And most physicists, when they try to reason about the terminal domain, they reason under physical confinement. Okay, well, I can only look at physics, and I have to use what I know about physics, what I can observe about physics, to explain everything else that I explain. So they have that kind of explanatory closure
yeah.
going right there.
So the things that people see when they're on psychedelics, I usually write them off and I tell people, you're just hallucinating. But you're saying maybe that's not all it is. They might be seeing something real.
Well, once again, what is reality? Is reality just stuff out there?
No.
Reality has a mental aspect.
Yep.
Right? And once you admit that basically everything has a mental aspect, then of course what's going on in your mind is real. It takes on a kind of reality. It's not the same as physical reality. It is nevertheless real.
Are angels and demons real?
Yes. Yes.
I think so too. Is there a fear that if you take some of these drugs, you might be letting in the wrong guys?
That's a problem, isn't it? And that's a problem that I think a lot of people have encountered. You have to be a certain kind of person to be able to handle these and not be sucked under by them, okay? Because once your mind is messed with in that way, something else, it's weakened, you're not exactly in control anymore, something else can come in and grab it. And if you open up that gap that I was talking about, what can come into that gap might not be good for you.
God is real, angels are real, demons are real. Is the devil real?
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, it has to be. We were talking about Michael Knowles being surrounded by the medium, and, you've got a boundary. Yeah. Well, God has a boundary too. He's got a very tight boundary. He is perfect. He can't take anything resembling imperfection, right? He can't take it into himself, because that would be a contradiction. Yep. Okay? So God needs an antithesis in order to be properly defined. What is that antithesis? Anti-God, or Satan. So it definitely exists. Now, Satan isn't coherent, because, he basically hates existence. Nevertheless, he gains coherence through human beings, through secondary tellers. But, of course, the elite themselves realize this. They know that that's how the world works. They just want to distract you.
Well, that's such a great way to put it.
Young global leader program, young global leaders. I mean, everybody's a young global leader, right? I mean, Trudeau, Macron, Merkel, Putin. And for the Putin deals, that very much surprised me, but Klaus Schwab is on record. He's on video, in fact, claiming that Vlad Putin is one of his young global leaders. It's a strategy for world domination, and it has been for the last 200 years. What has changed?
So when someone like Trump comes along, and he says, I'm not going to fight this political battle along exactly left-right lines or Republican-Democrat, but I'm saying I'm going to stand for the American nation and nationalism generally against globalism. But he managed to get through. He did get elected.
Yes, he did.
Were you a Trump supporter? You don't need to say if you don't want to.
As a matter of fact, back when people were saying, Trump can't read, look at the way he hesitates. He can't, he's got trouble with the teleprompter. The guy can't read. I actually stood up and I said no. I said, I've met Donald Trump, and I think his IQ is probably equal to that of the average Harvard professor.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah. I actually stood up for, of course, I never got anything out of it, but I thought I was doing,
you just said it because
telling people that, basically he is competent. He's a good businessman. and therefore could be good for the country. And I wanted people to understand that.
So how did this guy, and I've asked this to my friends, and I said, how did this guy, who I think was basically on the level and really did at least try to pose a stopping block to the globalism program, how did he ever get elected? How'd they let him through?
Well, he was a little bit of a wild card. Trump is not as easily controlled as some of them are. So he stood up there and he spoke his mind. He's got good instincts in that respect because what he said resonates with what is in the minds of a lot of American citizens. We want to have our own country. We want America to have first. We don't want our borders to be open. We don't want millions of third world migrants coming here every year and displacing us from our own territory. I mean, and Trump actually, he did a good job of enunciating that. That's how he got elected. But I will tell you this, that if people don't act as though they are willing to fight for their own rights, they're going to lose those rights. Founding fathers knew it. It's written right into the Constitution. Okay, if we don't fight for our rights, we're going to lose them. Simple as that.